Peter, I'm going to start by congratulating you on what I think is a truly remarkable film, and to ask you what really came first for you in this. Was it the sort of very intricate, delicate and beautiful universe, or was it the concept of setting a film entirely in a universe of women?
Neither. The first draft had both sexes. They had jobs. They were living in the city. I don't know, things just changed. But I think, yeah, the first draft, it was quite, had the social element, but I wanted to just exclude that and just only concentrate on this idea of compromise in a relationship, in terms of who is the one compromising, the one who is repressing their desires to give the other ones some peace, assuming they don't share the same interests, or the one who is indulging the other person. And it's not about what you're into. It's, okay, in this one it's quite niche, I guess, but it could be anything, but it's just, yeah, I think that was the, I guess, the spark, I guess.
Sure. Can I ask you about your working process? Because one of the things that I find really compelling about your films is how, how cinematic they are across the scope of that, so visually, orally, and here, I think there's a really palpable sense of touch, and also one of my favourite credits in recent cinema being the perfume credit. So can you talk about your process in terms of how you come to a film with all those different elements in mind?
It happens quite gradually. It just bit by bit, each draft changes, and of course on set things change, and circumstances change, and actors suggest things, and I mean all the collaborators, they come up with things. I mean, the perfume one, I stole it from an Audrey Hepburn film, Paris When It Sizzles. I kind of steal from everything, to be honest. But I think a lot of it's just intuition. I think it's all about serving the story, really. So with the sound, it's not a bombastic. I mean, we put a huge amount of effort in, and I'm really proud of the soundtrack in terms of both the music and the sound design. But it had to serve a fairly quiet atmosphere. I think it's just a gradual process. I mean, even in the sound design, we discover things. I mean, there's that whole dream sequence that a lot of the things came together at the last minute there. A lot of it is just cosmetic. You think, oh God, we didn't get a certain shot, and you just need to fill in something. I hate to disappoint you, but.
Well, you haven't. Chiara, can I ask you, this is your second feature film as an actress, and a second film with Peter, and your background is in theatre. What attracted you to this project, and also what is it like working with Peter?
Well, what attracted me was that I had a very good experience with Peter, and the first film had a tiny role, and so was mostly Peter. I think at the beginning the script wasn't there. You asked me, would you like to work with me again, and I was intrigued, and then what fascinated me about the script, I think I said the same thing. They asked me this question 3 times tonight, and I said the same thing, is that the first time I read it, I immediately had a sense of the mood and the atmosphere, and all especially for me was coming out of the pages, and I found it a world that was very fascinating. And working with Peter is easy, very easy. I found
because you know what, no one else in terms of feature films.
Yes,
you just wait.
Oh, you just told me the line. I was telling because you're the because there is a lot of I found it there's a lot of freedom, and at the same time is a very lovely kind of atmosphere. There's I don't feel tension or anything. It's very nice dialogues that we had. The 3 of us before every scene. I think I felt very supported. Both Peter and a great actress like Sidse with so much experience. For me, I was just everyone seemed to take care of me. That's what I felt.
And Sidse, for you, I mean, we've seen you on many screens here in the UK for classics such as After the Wedding, and the Susanna Beer film. I can't even. It's just gone. It is after the wedding. And also, of course, your TV role on Borgen as well. Can I ask you what attracted you to this particular project?
Yeah. Well, I saw Barbarian Sound Studio, and I was surprised to find myself being really into the sound, because I was so impressed with the sound in Barbarian Sound Studio, and I thought there was such an artistic integrity and originality in his timing and sound and choices. So it was that much more than I didn't want to do it, but my agent took me into it.
Can I ask how you both work together? Because obviously it's, you know, there's some quite demanding scenes, I think, but beautifully realized. And how, you know, did you work closely together separately from Peter's guidance, or how did you develop those characters?
No. No, because Peter likes to watch. No, he doesn't actually. He hates to watch. And during the masturbation scene, he came in. Oh, we'll have to do it again. I can't see it. Oh God, I feel so bad about it. And I think he was really suffering, weren't you, Peter, during some of that shooting? No, but I think in the terms of David Lynch, I remember once he said, directing is all about communication, sometimes with words. And I think there was another kind of, there was a lot of communication, sometimes it was words.
Right, I'm not quite sure how to expand on that one.
Me neither.
Peter, can I go back to the point that you were making about Jess Franco, and that being one of the leaping points for this film? One of the things that I think is really, you know, terrific about your filmmaking is that we see this kind of passionate love and knowledge of cinema. And when you actually start out shooting a film, do you turn all of that off in order to get to your own space, or do you actually, you know, return to those films that inspire you while you're making the film?
I mean, I'm sure there's shots we kind of nick from certain things. I think actually there's one we stole from Morgiana, a film by Uday Hertz. If anyone's seen it,
I have. It's a wonderful
great,
film.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Great soundtrack as well by Lubos Fischer. But so sometimes, yeah, I think I just can't resist it. But usually there's a starting point with taking, I guess, genre tropes, and then that just changes quite naturally with each draft. It just becomes, I think with anyone writing, you just can't help. It becomes personal, even if it's not personal. It's just the nature of writing something. So, yeah, I guess the very first drafts are, I guess, very, very different and a lot more, what's the word, derivative, perhaps. But I guess everything I do is derivative. I just try to pick influences.
The word originality springs to mind, actually. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I think. I mean, for me, what's really fascinating about, especially this kind of what is seen as disreputable cinema, in terms of some of the horror films from Italy in the 70s, some of the sexploitation films from that period, they are kind of frowned upon, and so it's just kind of bringing it back to life, but somehow they're not. This is not a realistic film, as you probably can see, but the pragmatics are what I find interesting. That there's still very pragmatic situations that you wouldn't normally get in a genre film. So just colliding these rituals with someone who maybe is a reluctant, dominant person. So I think I'm no expert in these films, but I think the ones I've seen, the fantasy's never punctured. It's you know, someone who's inherently dominant or inherently masochistic. I think the truest film I've seen in terms of sadomasochism is the Fassbinder film, Martha, which is, I mean, that's hardcore. Really, I mean, this film, I think it's a very tender film in my mind. I think whereas the Fassbinder film, it's brutal, especially when the wife is forced to learn about engineering for bridges over the weekend when her husband returns home.
I just wanted to ask you to expand on how you go into a very serious and intense kind of setup around sadomasochism, and yet you manage to do something very playful and almost normalize it. What was your normalize it, not to make it normal, but make it every day, I guess, is the idea. And I'm just interested in how you approach that.
Well, I think, yeah, the intention certainly was to do that, was to take something that I'm assuming the majority of an audience would find alienating or ridiculous, perhaps. But then the further you get into it, you realize that the dilemmas are the same as everyone. But I think, the subject of masochism, I think it's there in very small doses in most people. Yeah, I think it was. I was really trying hard not to be judgmental. I mean, the thing is, when you write a film, I enjoy being a bit devious, and I think it's necessary to make fun of the characters a little bit. It doesn't mean I'm making fun of the practices, but that's what I do. I make fun of my characters. But again, it's sort of, bringing out some kind of tenderness there. And I mean, what I find really fascinating about it is the whole dynamic of it when Cynthia has a bad back, and suddenly it's not erotic at all for Evelyns. It's exactly the same request, the same action, but it's just the whole dynamic just shifts. But I mean, I think that just the very last thing is that I just the whole idea of performance and directing and laying out the marker tape on the floor, and the idea of putting on a persona, which is something all of us have to do, and as we're doing now in front of you, but. I mean, there was a general sense of I wanted to make something very autumnal, even though that was not in the first draft. The idea of insects going into hibernation or dying, emigrating, and it's a very autumnal love story for me. I mean, there are many other things. I mean, it's hard because I think I think there are metaphors which are perhaps unintentional. And if I say them, I sound like a sixth form student, so I might spare you that. But yeah, I think it provided this very strong texture for me, something quite surreal in a sense. And I think surrealists were using that a lot. So yeah, but I mean, I love this idea of the mole cricket hibernating in the winter in this tomb essentially. But yeah, I mean, I just. I also have another ulterior motive. I released a single of mole cricket recordings which I couldn't shift. So now I'm going to repackage them with a sticker saying "as seen in the film." They've been under my bed for years, which might explain a lot of things in this film. But anyway. That was pretty much planned in the script stage, but a lot changes as you editing. I mean, the whole structure of the script really was scrambled around in the edit. But within those scenes, we kind of roughly kept things as they were. I think this is the dream sequence midway through, before Cynthia meets Lorna. That was done in the edit. But I mean, I don't really storyboard. I attempted it once, and I find it really difficult to storyboard because everything just changes on set. I mean, you sometimes when you do these things, the location changes and the actors in the space completely change it, or the butterflies in the space change it. So, I think, but certain things were very much planned in advance, such as the Stan Brakhage ripoff. But that was done with a company called Jellyfish, who completely made those moths from scratch, which was that was quite a time-consuming process. So, unlike Brakhage, we didn't stick wings to celluloid.
Can I ask both of you to talk about that on-set experience? And it's, Peter has kind of clearly suggested that the film itself morphs while you're in the process of making it. So Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think, in my experience, everything was in the script, everything, and what I really loved about the script, because I did love the script, was that the dialogue was so precise, and there was more dialogue. Some of it has been taken. I think it would have lasted 4 hours if we used
3 hours the first cut.
3 hours, but the way, you know, in the dialogue, it was very rare the way you could read their reactions, and there were some really, really tragic moments. I remember there was the one that made me cry. You're not used to that, but that's when they towards the end, and she says, and you know, we're going away from all this stuff because Cynthia can't have it, and she says, no, I don't need that. It's fine. And they read books in bed, and Cynthia's happy, and I'm saying, are you all right? And she says, yeah, I'm fine, more than fine. And then it just says something around like, and then there's something, I don't remember the line, but it was something about the boredom or something that, you just felt the tragedy coming just around the corner, right when you think, okay, we've got it. We got through it. We're here. Yeah. Whoa, next corner. And that kind of, I think it's so intelligent on so many levels in the dialogue. So, yeah, to get back to your questions, because that was just butt kissing, I think, and all the insects and even their function, I think, was written in the script. So what happened on set was maybe some of the physical approaches to the surroundings, probably. But I think it was pretty on the script, pretty much on the script. That's my version. Now your version.
Well, actually, I'm going to ask Chiara a slightly different question, because one of the things that I think is really compelling about both your role and the way that you inhabit and perform it is that we see a certain power, if you like, in the masochist. It's as if you're actually, I think I said in my note, wearing the pants, even if you're washing the knickers. So can you, can you tell us a little bit about how you perceived, her sense of power in this?
Well, when I read the script and I worked on the character on my own, I think I had a much harsher perspective and hard perspective on Evelyns, and I saw more that side, the side of the powerful, manipulative, and I wasn't kind of the cruelty of the character. And for me, she was in a sense for me. Well, I know someone talked about the moth and before and the incident. For me, in a way, I saw the constricting of, for instance, the lingerie that I forced my partner to wear as a sort of pinning her, like the butterfly that we saw pinned and beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, but dead. And in a sense, for me, a lot of Evelyns was seeing the world only from her own perspective, as if you are like a toddler, where you never have capacity of empathize in a sense, and the world is supposed to work around you. And for me, Evelyns was only asking constantly in order to have the world exactly as I wanted it to be. And I wasn't very sympathetic towards the character, which isn't a good way to be as an actor. But then progressively, in reality, the other side is, in reality, she is really fragile, because for her, this is a need. It's not a question of wanting to manipulate my partner. I love my partner. I love Cynthia dearly. The point is a compulsion. For me, I started to see it as a compulsion, something that she can't live without. And in that sense, there is a tragedy and the fragility as well, because it makes her also Evelyns extremely fragile. And there is one point, I think, in the film where there's also a side of humiliation in a sense of the character, where I think you can still, you feel for her, and it's during the lecture. Because she tries to fit in and show off, and in reality makes a fool of herself. And in a sense, there is also, and so there is this sort of side that, so okay, well, you had a little show, better if you calm down. Now it's sort of kind of almost in a protective way, but also seeing me in a bit of seeing Evelyn being a bit pathetic in a way. So I think that I started to see basically different shades and a different aspect of the character while I was working on it. And initially I could see just a kind of, oh, she's a manipulative bitch, but it's not only that, it's much more.